Blaze Media broke the story when the current Miss United States accused Congressman Cory Mills of sextortion and accepting bags full of cash. The former girlfriend of Mills is now trying to get a restraining order against him, but things got wild at the courthouse as Mills tried to explain away threatening messages to her. Blaze News investigative reporter Steve Baker was there, and right now he's here with us to tell us exactly what went down. So, Steve, take us in there. I mean, I was pretty jealous of you on Friday that you got to be there in the courtroom. How'd it go?
Well, it was really started out kind of funny. I was actually looking down at my phone. I was probably sending one of you guys a message or something, and all of a sudden, the congressman says something to me. He says, "Mr. Baker, good morning. It's so good to see you." And he reached right across the into the gallery where I was sitting on the front row and shook my hand and greeted me with a big smile on his face. And just a few minutes after that, one of the sheriffs came up to the front row. There was some journalists sitting on the front row, and it wasn't marked like it is in a federal courthouse for press or family. And so some of us had taken up position on the front row of the gallery, and the sheriff asked us to move back a row. And when I did that, he turned around to me, the congressman turned around to me and said, "Steve," he said, "as much as you've been covering me now," he says, "we're like family now. So just tell them you're family and you can sit on the front row."
Quite a moment. Quite a moment. Well, let's remind people what the core of this case is actually about, right? If we can show the text messages that are at the heart of this, which appear to show the congressman threatening his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend to reveal video and photos that he had of her of a sexual nature, which is, I believe, a felony offense in Florida law. And that's why this was all going down, correct?
Yeah, it's quite a serious offense considering the threats that are allegedly involved in these texts. We're talking about in Florida, under Florida law, the threat of what do they call it? Revenge porn, sextortion, that sort of thing has a fine of up to 15 years in prison, $15,000 fine, and so it is a serious offense. Now, this particular hearing wasn't a criminal hearing. This hearing was specifically related to Ms. Langston's effort to get a restraining order against the congressman from reaching out and contacting her any further. And one of the things that they made it clear in the hearing itself was how many times, 9, 10, 11 times, that she had specifically asked him to break off contact. Now, she blocked him on some of her social media posts, that sort of thing, but multiple people had access to her through her phone, obviously. That was hard. And even the congressman even contacted her through Sarah Raviani's phone on occasion, which of course is the other girl out of D.C., which was back on February 19th when there was a domestic violence called to the congressman's luxury penthouse suite there in D.C. This was the girl that had placed the call, and that's how Miss Langston, the reigning Miss United States, learned that she wasn't the congressman's one and only.
So, Steve, what was the congressman's response to these texts? I mean, what did he say? He must have maintained that he wasn't threatening her, right?
Well, this is where it gets into really a bizarre, almost laughable response to him, or to these messages, rather. He said that based on the fact that both of them were born and bred in the country. They were country kids. He was brought up in the country. She was brought up in the country. And so this was just kind of the way that they talked to one another. And then he hearkened back to when they had their first breakup and reconciliation sometime in 2023, that was the way that they talked to each other then, that they talked, it was kind of jabbing each other. It was more humorous. And he actually made the statement that he was kind of speaking to her in her voice, not really his voice. And so they weren't really to be regarded as threats at all. It's just, it was just their normal and usual banter.
Well, and something else that came up in the court proceedings, Ms. Langston went through and said back in January that the congressman had some suicidal thoughts, that the bourbon wasn't working. Take us through that. That's something that Ms. Langston has shared with Blaze Media as well, but it did come up on Friday.
Yeah, this came up, and the court actually wanted to see evidence of this. This was something that was quite interesting, and as a matter of fact, it caught most people in the courtroom by surprise. Was that in text exchanges that he had with her going back to January of this year, that he was sending her photos and messages about his drinking, having a firearm with him, that he was drinking too much bourbon, and that he was considering thoughts of suicide at that time. Now, this was before their last and final, apparently, breakup at the time in February. But this was something that she felt very bad about. She felt a desire to work and help him through that. There were evidently some struggles going on already, because she had already begun to notice some things in social media related to the people that followed his accounts, her accounts, that was beginning to give indication that he might have relationships, plural, outside of the one that he had with her.
Well, I hope he's all right. Certainly, his mental health. I hope he's doing fine. But that is a kind of bizarre hearing for just a restraining order. A whole lot went into that. What happened at the end?
Well, it was a lot longer than what anybody anticipated. The judge had only allocated about 45 minutes for both the petitioner, that would have been Ms. Langston and her attorney, and then the defense, that would have been Cory Mills and his attorney. And it just wasn't enough time, because once you added in the cross-examination time of each witness, then it became rather lengthy. And as a matter of fact, they were completely out of time after Cory Mills' direct examination from his attorney, and by the time it was time for Langston's attorney to cross-examine him, they were just out of time. The judge called them up to the bench, had a consultation with them for several minutes. If you've ever been in one of those courtroom situations, they put on white noise so that we can't hear the conversation that's taking place. And then once they finished, then the court began to instruct everyone that there was going to have to be an extension. There was going to have to be a delay, that they could not continue because of the other things that were on the docket that day in that courtroom. He even went so far as to say that he would have continued that on Saturday morning had he been able to bring in the staffing for that. But he said he just did not have the staffing available to go into Saturday. And then what he instructed from both attorneys were to get together, and that they would notify the court by 4 p.m. that day. That was just this past Friday, that they would notify him at that time, a mutually agreed upon set of dates where they could conclude this. How much more time was it going to take? They both estimated at least another 45 minutes apiece.
So they're going to continue that at a date that is yet to be determined. But we do know that the congressman is out there saying the February 19th incident from the D.C. penthouse when Sarah Raviani called the cops, that is all done. It's all cleared up, Steve. There's nothing to see here. So the congressman's trying to take a victory lap on at least one of these court cases.
Well, there's nothing to see there if you haven't actually read the police report. If you've actually read the police report, there's something to see there. Now, what we're dealing with in that particular circumstance is the typical, what do they call it? It's that DC two-step shuffle, however they refer to the Potomac two-step. It's just the fact that when you're talking about very important people, you're talking about Congress members, senators, and the like, they are going to get advantages from the local law enforcement that they don't typically get. In this particular case, Ed Martin was the acting D.C. attorney at the time, and what he told Blaze Media is that this was never brought to him. And in fact, what he told me specifically was that he got blamed for dismissing that, but he said that got dismissed at the supervisory level at the Metropolitan Police before he ever had a chance to review it himself.